It's 8 p.m. and here are our top stories. Introducing alternatives to incarceration.
This bill is designed to provide treatment rather than punishment.
Colorado lawmakers are working with mental health experts to break a vicious cycle.
Faster we can kind of treat and recognize, then hopefully we don't see people getting deeper and deeper into the system.
More than 2 months since the Marshall Fire, and cleanup efforts are falling behind.
So the sooner we get this stuff done, the faster that folks can move forward.
The red tape holding up recovery.
We're working to do everything we can as a staff to enable this community to recover quickly.
As war rages in Ukraine, President Biden prepares for a meeting with NATO leaders in Europe.
We're moving urgently to further augment the support to the brave people of Ukraine.
Meanwhile, a Denver hospital donates desperately needed medical supplies.
If we don't step up to help, who will?
Good evening and thank you for watching Denver 7 News on Local 3. I'm Jessica Porter.
I'm Danny New. Tonight, state lawmakers are addressing one of the root causes of crime in our state.
It comes on the heels of two of the most violent and deadly years in Colorado's record. According to our partners at the Denver Post, 96 people died in Denver homicides last year. Just one death above the prior year, 2020, which recorded 95 deaths by homicide. It's the highest number reported since 1981, when Denver had 100 homicides, the highest recorded ever for the city.
The most recent example of this metro area violence comes out of North Glen Monday night. One person was shot and killed by a teenager during a cell phone robbery. It happened at the N-Line station off New York Street and 112th Avenue. The victim was shot in the stomach and then later died at the hospital, and police now have a 17-year-old in custody. And looking statewide, there are different strategies for lowering the crime rate, ranging from addressing a worsening drug use epidemic to a flood of guns that's moving into our communities.
One idea is to put more resources toward behavioral health services to help low-level offenders without incarcerating them. Denver 7 political reporter Megan Lopez explains.
Busy doesn't even begin to describe Mary McKenzie's day.
We just had to close down referrals.
Mary is a behavioral health navigator for the mental health diversion program in Boulder County. Rather, she's the only dedicated navigator for that program. And between her 36 rotating clients, she's always busy.
I'm with them from the time of intake until the time of discharge after 6 months.
Mary's part of a pilot program in the county prompted by a 2018 law to try to reach low-level offenders early in the arrest process.
So they don't have to make a plea, they don't get sentenced, they're just diverted out of the system into community treatment.
Using diversion rather than a court division to get them help.
The faster we can kind of treat and recognize, then hopefully we don't see people getting deeper and deeper into the systems.
So far, Boulder says it's had a 91% success rate and some significant stories.
We had one man who had over 100 arrests in 2019. We were able to divert him into mental health diversion, and we were really happy to see that in 2020, he only had one arrest and none that I know of in 2021. He's now housed and stabilized.
So this session, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is working to make that pilot program permanent.
As part of the intake process in the jail, the bill provides that they are to be assessed. So this bill is designed to provide treatment rather than punishment.
But there are challenges. A report released last year on the program found 8, like mental health provider shortages.
If I don't have facilities or programs or people to staff those programs, it's not going to be as successful as it could be.
Parts of the report also called the program all carrot and no stick.
We don't threaten to file the charges later, but we do expect that they are going to work with us. The downside is that there's some people that might not come back.
So some defendants could get away without treatment or punishment. Still,
it's not just a carte blanche pretrial diversion program. Offenders have to qualify.
Supporters insist this program is a different approach after so many years of taking the same tactic.
If we can get people back on the right track, stabilized on their behavioral health issues, we're going to see less crime from them in the future.
Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
Megan, thank you. And that bill passed its first committee last month. It heads to the Senate Appropriations Committee next.
Something we don't think about, a new study is showing the impact of COVID-19 on a person's mental health. It reviewed almost 250,000 people, about 4% of whom tested positive for COVID. Researchers found those who tested positive are more likely to experience lingering feelings of depression that lasted about 2 months. And then they determined those who suffered More serious cases of COVID that kept them bedridden for about a week or more were more likely to experience depression 16 months later.
A Montrose man has been arrested for threats via Twitter against FBI Denver, the Department of Homeland Security building, and Wells Fargo. Christian Castrillon was arrested on Friday and made his first appearance in federal court yesterday. These tweets were released in the arrest affidavit. They show Castrillon threatening to blow up the FBI building in Denver, as well as attacking Homeland Security. A tweet also shows Castrillon making a threat against the Department of Human Services in Colorado. He is set for another hearing in federal court Thursday.
U.S. Representative Diana DeGette is calling on the federal government to audit recently approved permits for the Suncor refinery in Commerce City. Dozens of permits were approved by the EPA, calling for, quote, minor modifications under the Federal Clean Air Act. But DeGette says that those modifications should be considered, quote, major. If so, the plant would be forced to take a series of additional steps to reduce the amount of pollution that it emits.
Well, it's been nearly 3 months since the Marshall Fire devastated hundreds of homes in Boulder County.
And for families who are waiting on debris removal before that they can rebuild, they're somehow not better off than they were in the beginning, even though it's been a bit.
Denver 7's Sloan Dickey spoke to officials in Louisville and Superior about what's being done to speed up recovery efforts.
Yeah, it's been a long road for thousands of residents of Louisville and Superior. 75 days now since the Marshall Fire ravaged this area, and you can see behind me homes still sit in rubble on the ground. Well, there could be a cleanup plan in the works and implemented as early as this week. I spoke with officials from both Louisville and Superior today, and leaders from both cities expressed frustrations with the slow timeline of the process. They did say that several major issues had to be worked out, like traffic flows and parking permits for the companies working in these impacted areas. They also needed to parse legal details of which companies would be contracted to do the cleanup jobs. Another issue here in Louisville is the green building codes that many residents say is driving up the cost of building. The city of Louisville is introducing a bill tonight that would allow residents with destroyed homes to revert their standards back to the 2018 codes in place before the new green net zero codes were adopted.
What's on the table is an amendment to allow these property owners, these families, to, if they're facing that financial hardship of underinsurance, to opt out of 2021 Energy Code with the Net Zero Appendix back to either the 2021 without the Net Zero Appendix or to the 2018 Energy Code.
Now, those amendments are just being introduced tonight, and a vote on those reforms are not set to be voted on until April. However, priority number one is that cleanup. As you can see behind me, there's still rubble in hundreds and hundreds of lots. Residents here are waiting for when that plan will be implemented first. Live in Louisville, Sloan Dickey, Denver 7.
Thank you, Sloan. And tonight, Boulder County residents impacted by the Marshall Fire were invited to a seminar on Firewise. It's a nationwide program that helps anyone living in wildfire areas learn ways to reduce the risk. One example is in Larkspur, where neighbors do fire mitigation twice a year. Firewise encourages neighbors to work with each other to manage their wildfire risk and harden their homes against wildfire embers. And if you missed tonight's meeting, you can learn more by searching Firewise USA.
The White House now says President Biden will join NATO world leaders in Brussels, Belgium next week for an extraordinary meeting and show of U.S. support for Ukraine. On the 20th day since Russia invaded Ukraine, Russian forces are now escalating their attacks on the capital, Kyiv. Multiple residences in the nation's capital today were hit by Russian airstrikes. Kyiv's mayor is urging civilians to take shelter, imposing a 35-hour curfew. There are growing fears Russia could use chemical weapons as a pretext to escalate its attacks. And more journalists have been killed covering the invasion. Fox News confirmed that veteran cameraman Pierre Zakshevska was killed on the ground, as well as a female producer from Ukraine. Meanwhile, the UN now says more than 3 million refugees have fled the country.
On the local front, more than $200,000 worth of medical supplies were donated today by UC Health to support Ukraine. They were given to the nonprofit Project Cure, which delivers medical supplies to places that need them. In fact, they have a history of specifically helping Ukraine.
These are people who, I mean, it could be us. They're not that different. We've started working in Ukraine in 1994. The people who we were working with, they're friends, and now they're facing something like this that's just completely horrific. If we don't step up to help, who will?
And here's the plan. The supplies will be flown to a city in a neighboring country and then trucked to places that need them most.
Coming up on Denver 7 News at 8, a Colorado woman locked in a legal battle with her HOA.
Started treating us more like the enemy instead of like a fellow homeowner.
Now she's trying to expose problems within the state system.
So you think the state needs to be able to regulate HOA?
I do.
60s and 70s for today, but don't look now, there's snow on the way.
Plus, ready for a day trip? I'll pack 'em my bags.